A few announcements this evening. First of all, welcome to our last board meeting of the 2020-2021 school year. I want to just read that script for everyone also, so that there's no confusion about the meeting with the Zoom issues still being available. This meeting is being filmed to be broadcast on community cable channels and online. Individuals attending this meeting virtually and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania's Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the name and address of each citizen who speaks during public comment. At the start of the meeting, members from the public may comment on agenda items only. The school board will move through the agenda. Then at the end, when prompted, there will be time for public comment. Community members joining us on Zoom who would like to make a comment should use the raise hand feature when prompted. Individuals with their hand raised will be called on during public comment and will be asked to unmute themselves before speaking. I will do my best to balance speakers in the room with speakers on Zoom, as I usually do. Those who are making a comment are asked to keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board president or solicitor may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next person should that time run over. I also want to extend a very sincere thank you to everyone who had a role in our beautiful graduation last Tuesday evening. It was memorable, it was beautiful, it was fantastic. So I thank you all for that. And Mrs. Earl, I believe that you wanted to reference a policy on our agenda this evening before we take public comment.
Yeah, agenda category 10, other business, item B, there's a policy that we're going to rescind/retire entitled Anti-Discrimination and Harassment. By no means are we returning to discrimination and harassment. I just wanted to make clear that this policy is now covered under policy 103 entitled Discrimination/Title IX Sexual Harassment Affecting Students. It's a more thorough policy. It incorporates everything that was in 248.1. And I just wanted to be clear before public comment came up so that we don't let you think that we are regressing. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Earl. And is there anything tonight from our student reps?
There are no announcements this evening.
Well, thank you, and Allison, welcome. Okay, with that, then we'll move on to public to be heard on agenda items only. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a comment?
Hi, Abby Deerdorf, 704 Collin Court in Royersford. I'm speaking tonight on agenda item 8T. I want to take the opportunity tonight to thank the Health and Safety Planning team for putting together such a comprehensive plan for next year. This 28-person team is an impressive group of stakeholders who are experts in their respective positions within our district. Educators, district administrators, nurses, building administrators, and supervisors of special education. We are lucky to have so much talent and unwavering dedication here at Springford. I appreciate that Springford Area School District will continue to consider guidance and implement mandates provided by the CDC, PA Department of Health, PA Department of Education, and the Montgomery County Office of Public Health. Again, allowing experts to guide our path forward. While the word consider used in the plan doesn't instill 100% confidence, the combined experience of the health and safety team and our local governing bodies lead me to believe that Springford Area School District will keep the safety and well-being of our staff and students at the forefront of their decisions. But I also want to take a moment to remind the school board of the commitment they are making to our school community with the approval of this plan. Yes, COVID or whatever challenges us next is ever evolving, and there must be room in our planning and response for adoption of any changes that reflect the new needs of the district. However, these adaptations are not something to be taken lightly. As Mr. Rizzo stated himself, the district has lost trust and respect of many community members over the past year. It is mostly due to sweeping motions made by some board members on what seems like a whim for personal gain or an exclusive representation of our school community. Actions like this exploit the hard work and dedication, the administration and staff, and weakens the reputation of our excellent school district also breaking down trust as individuals and in the entire way our district is governed. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments in the room? Do we have any comments on Zoom? Rich, go ahead.
Michael, please state your full name and address and your agenda item. Please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Michael Lebejinsky, 2005 Willowwood Drive in Royersford, commenting on agenda item 8T and U. Board members are being asked to approve an emergency resolution and health and safety plan tonight, attesting that they, quote, find and declare that the COVID-19 pandemic continues to be an emergency, and they, quote, have determined that the impact of COVID-19 to our students, faculty, and community requires an extraordinary response. As math students are often told before an exam, show your work, not just the answer. The data to support this resolution is missing. The resolution states that the WHO has declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. How many board members have actually read the WHO's current designation of COVID-19? According to their website today, COVID is currently in the, quote, post-pandemic stage when, quote, levels of disease have returned to the level seen for seasonal influenza in most countries with adequate surveillance. The WHO is global, so maybe local conditions support this resolution. According to the nursing staff who maintain the Springford Summer COVID Dashboard, which was updated today, 0 COVID-19 cases have been reported in the Springford community in the last 8 days since June 13th. So we don't have any cases, yet the board is declaring that an emergency still exists, and that emergency requires an extraordinary response. As a result of 0 cases in the last 8 days and 5 cases over the past 19 days in a community of over 52,000 residents, I applaud the 5 wise board members who voted for choice, hope, and smiles last Monday night. Your vote had a transformationally positive impact on the lives of so many Springford students and staff. The nurses' COVID Summer Dashboard confirms it. None of the doom and gloom fear-mongered by those who still traumatically infected with COVID psychosis came true after your vote last Monday night. This should come as no surprise, as they have been wrong on every fear-based and fact-devoid assertion over the past year, which is why it's even more shocking that the proposed health and safety plan does not incorporate everything this board and administration has learned over the past year. Despite being shown success by neighboring school districts like Central Bucks, it seems we have not learned that quarantining is a highly disruptive, futile waste of time and resources with 0 benefit. How do we know this? It's a pretty strong statement, right? You've quarantined over 2,500 people this year. Not a single one ultimately became infected from the so-called exposure. Our own data shows that you are well within your rights to adopt modified quarantine without waiting on Montgomery County, which has lied and misled you repeatedly, as evidenced by factual emails on COVID issues, and accidentally released personally identifiable information of 556 county residents, including Springford residents, publicly. Before voting on the emergency resolution, I strongly encourage you to make sure you're incorporating everything learned over the past year. Vote on facts, not fear.
Okay, we're at 3 minutes.
Kat Doyle, please state your full name and address and your public comment to be heard. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Catherine. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. My name is Catherine Doyle, and I live at 310 Woodland Drive in Collegeville, and I have 2 children in the district. I am also speaking to agenda item 8T, approval of the health and safety plan for the summer and new school year. I also would like to thank the team that put together this robust safety plan. However, I would like to ask the administration and board to revise the section on universal and correct wearing of masks to reflect that the district will follow both recommendations and mandates concerning face coverings that may be put in place by health and or government officials. Again, at the moment, the policy only states that you will consider recommendations, and I am asking that you make the change that you will follow both recommendations and mandates that are put in place by health and or government officials. Garnet Valley Area School District has this language in their proposed plan that they will be voting on tomorrow. I'm also requesting that the district remove the statement that masking is a personal choice that's in this section. While masking may be a personal choice when transmission rates are low and individuals are vaccinated, unvaccinated individuals like our under 12 community, as well as those that are immunocompromised, are at a higher risk due to the entire age group being unvaccinated, especially when transmission rates are higher or substantial. Masks are most effective at protecting those around you versus yourself. This was demonstrated by the often touted track record for Springford's transmission rate. Finally, I would like the administration and board members to include in the plan that any non-urgent changes, such as the vote last week on making masks optional the last 3 days, be implemented with at least 24 hours notice. This would allow parents, teachers, and staff to have ample time to prepare their children, classrooms, students, and buildings for those changes. Thank you.
Christine, please state your full name and address and your public comment to be heard. Please unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. It took me a minute to do that. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. My name is Christine Jambowski, 310 4th Avenue, Montclair. And I'd like to comment on agenda item 8T, please, for the health and safety plan for next year. I'm speaking tonight to ask the board to change the 21-22 health and safety plan's recommended universal masking practices on page 5 that were just referenced to align with the current CDC recommendations that unvaccinated individuals wear masks indoors. At a minimum, I'm asking the board to require masks for students under 12 as they are not yet eligible to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. Please know there is an online petition supporting this request for parents that they have signed that was also sent to administration and all board members. And the petition currently has 196 signatures. Continuing to follow CDC guidelines will help to ensure the safety and well-being of our school community and provide a thoughtful, compassionate, and empathetic return to school for the staff for the fall, especially for students who may be returning to buildings for the first time in over a year. Universal mask wearing is the most essential tool in preventing school-based transmission, as we saw this past school year with low transmission rates in our schools among students. It's discouraging that the board is disregarding the guidance and recommendations from leaders in health education and infectious disease control, whose current guidance advises masks indoors for people who are not vaccinated. I'm asking the board to meet us halfway. Universal masking for students under 12 is a simple and straightforward compromise. This fall will be a transition time for all students and a time when our community most needs sturdy leadership and reasonable decisions made in consideration of the greater good for all, including students under 12 who do not yet have the protection from vaccines, but can continue to have protection from universal masking. We don't know what the fall will bring, but we do know that people most at risk of transmitting disease, getting sick, and being hospitalized, and unfortunately that are dying the most, are those that are not vaccinated. It's essential for public leaders to follow and enforce guidance from local and state health departments, which most often defer to the CDC, which has yet to release or change the guidance for schools for next school year. I ask you to consider families that may have a parent or child that is high risk. I know some will say the solution is to choose cyber, but not all parents can be home with their child, especially elementary age. So in-person learning is essential. Or students may already have done a year of cyber and can't wait to return to their buildings in person. Does it have to be at the expense of safety? Every family has their own unique situation. All the more reason to continue to follow the best practice guidance to ensure all students can be in school safely. What an opportunity for us to all exercise our ability to think of others before ourselves and only go as fast as the slowest person can go. I hope you'll find the patience and compassion to meet families where we are at and support students to feel safe and confident back in their buildings this fall by requiring masks indoors for students in grades K to 6 until they're able to be eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you.
Allison O'Brien, you may now make public comment. Please unmute yourself and state your full name and address.
Hi, my name is Allison O'Brien, 505 Andover Lane, Collegeville, 19426. Speaking on agenda item 8T, I think that it's really sad that the Springford School District stated in their health and safety plan that the district will, quote, continue to consider guidance provided by the CDC, the PA Department of Health, the Department of Education, and the Montgomery Office of Public Health. Rather, Springford's health and safety plan should state that the district will follow all recommendations provided by the previous mentioned entities. The health and safety plan should also follow all recommendations and/or orders concerning face coverings that may be put in place by health and/or government officials. Springford should follow the recommendations and/or orders, not consider, not make optional, not encourage, but follow. I don't understand why the district can just pick and choose what they agree with or want to follow. We need to listen to the scientists and medical experts, because last I checked, no one on this board is a scientist or a medical expert in infectious diseases. Thank you.
Emily, you may now make public comment. Please state your full name and address and unmute yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Emily Lucier. I live at 7 Long Meadow Road in Royersford, Pennsylvania. I'd like to thank everyone for putting in the time and effort today, and I'd like to speak on item 18. I'd like to reiterate what Abby said earlier, that a lot of work went into putting that together, and it's very efficient plan, but there is definitely some tweaking that needs to go into it. And as well as what Kate mentioned before, we do need to consider our 12 and under individuals who do not have the opportunity to take any vaccines. And while that is a personal choice, we do need to consider community spread, and with possible variants or even the possibility of a resurgence. Right now, we're in a really great spot community-wise, and numbers are dipping, but we never know where that could go. We do need to consider that we need to follow guidance, and it shouldn't be considered. Our plan should really be written to say that we will follow guidance. Our school district should really follow those guidances and should not change without 24 hours notice for the community, for the parents, especially because not everyone works 9 to 5. So I would really, really urge that the board look into that plan and think for the autoimmune compromised families, the families that have the little ones that don't have the opportunity to protect themselves fully, to make those changes. Thank you.
John Clements, you may now make public comment. Please state your full name and address. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. This is John Clements, 31 Starmont Way in Collegeville. And this is regarding item 18, Health and Safety Plan for 2021-22. And this Springford Area School District School Board Health and Safety Plan for 21-22 is in contravention of guidance from health authorities and medical groups. The U.S. Center for Disease Control indicates that regardless of the level of community transmission, it is critical that schools use and layer prevention strategies. Schools providing in-person instruction should prioritize 2 prevention strategies. Universal and correct use of masks should be required, and physical distancing should be maximized to the greatest extent possible. The American Academy of Pediatrics guidance states that the use of face masks should continue until children or adolescents are fully vaccinated, which is 2 weeks after the final vaccine dose has been administered. Why would the Springford Area School District School Board make policy in direct conflict with established guidance? It is not reasonable to think that individual members or the board as a whole would know better than the American Academy of Pediatrics or the CDC. Though the government has not criminalized deviating from medical guidance, you still have an obligation to follow that guidance. So what does the policy do? Mask policy ensures the safety of immunocompromised individuals, children who cannot yet qualify for vaccination, and the broader community. The American Academy of Pediatrics explains it effectively in a recent news release. In addition to protecting the child, the use of face masks significantly reduces the spread of severe SARS-CoV-2 and other respiratory infections in schools and other community settings, the AAP notes. Use of face masks at home may be vital in households that include medically fragile, immunocompromised, or at-risk children or adults. Enforcing mask wearing will enable 1, the safe attendance of all children who cannot be vaccinated, 2, immunocompromised children, and 3, the community as a whole. In conclusion, the Springford Area School District School Board has made a health policy recommendation that is in direct conflict with established guidance. Mask wearing and physical distancing is the current guidance for schools. My position is that the Springford Area School District School Board follow current or future current guidance and do not attempt to make its own. And so please follow the CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics guidance. Thank you very much.
At this time, there were no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a few presentations this evening. Dr. Collier to present on the Global Studies Program.
Thank you. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to speak briefly about the Global Studies program here at the high school and recognize two young ladies earning a Global Studies certificate this year. A few years ago, Springford Area High School partnered with Arcadia University as a means to deliver additional dual credit options for our students. At that time, the Global Studies program was developed as a means to provide students a global focused pathway of course options in conjunction with Arcadia and their travel abroad programming. Our students may join the program at any time, but to graduate with a certificate in global studies, specific criteria must be met in the areas of social studies, world language, business, dual enrollment through Arcadia, and international travel. Students may choose from a variety of courses in these disciplines to make the global studies experience truly personalized. The high school is pleased to recognize two members from the class of 2021 on their completion of a global studies certificate. These two students were highly motivated to complete the Global Studies Certificate program and proactively engage with administration to declare their goals and seek solutions to the recent impact that COVID had on international travel opportunities. We congratulate both Riley Wallace and Julia Coates on this recognition. And no surprise, both the young ladies will be continuing with their studies in international studies. Riley will be doing that at Carnegie Mellon University, and Julia will be heading to Dickinson College, actually, correct? Dickinson College to study international studies. Congratulations, ladies.
Congratulations to you. And thank you for that presentation, which I think ties in very nicely with what we're going to hear later from the FPC. So thank you for that. And now, Mr. McDaniels, you're going to present on the softball and baseball this year or tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
These were the last two teams participating this spring, as I mentioned last week, how we were able to get through the season. And first, we like to recognize our softball team. Mr. Hughes is here to recognize, in recognition of the team. Unfortunately, we were unable to have any one of the girls be here tonight.
Vacationing right now, they are. Everyone.
Seems like everybody wanted to go somewhere as soon as June 17th ended. So I do want to make a personal note, and he is not going to be happy with me when I mention this, but Mr. Hughes this fall will be inducted into the Montgomery County Coaches Hall of Fame for all of his efforts. It's a very prestigious award, and we're excited and can't wait till that night of the banquet. But to recognize the softball team, they defeated Pope John Paul 15-0, which is a common theme in their season, 0 for the opponents, 15-0 to win the PAC championship. That was their 10th PAC championship in school history, and they finished the season with an overall record of 21-1. And also they claimed their second District 1 championship when they defeated Neshaminy here at Springford 5-0. One thing I do want to mention about the last 4 years of the program, the senior class that'll be moving on, they have an overall record in the last 4 years of 63-4, 63-4. And that unfortunately didn't even include last year. and which was 0-0. And they also have not lost a Pioneer Athletic Conference game in that same time span. So that's pretty tremendous domination. This year, they outscored their opponents 173-11. And that's one of the reasons why they ended up 21-1. Unfortunately, as we talked about before, that one was the last game of the year in the state quarterfinals. Very proud of our softball team and Coach Hughes and his staff. Congratulations on a great year. Now for our baseball team. I ask the gentleman to please come up and stand between the U. Obviously, they're not as interested in vacation as others. No, a lot of them have showcase baseball going on right now, I believe. Our baseball team defeated Pottsgrove 12-2 to go on 15-1 in the pack to when they won their 8th pack championship in school history. They finished the season overall 22-5. Their final loss was in the state semis when they lost 3-1. And we thought Aiden was going to get that big base hit, and first baseman made a pretty nice play to turn it into a double play. But that's a great season for this team, who I think people started to overlook as the season, when the season started and as it was moving along. A couple of stats on them. They have scored, or this year they scored 211 runs, and their opponents scored only 46. And they had if you know about baseball, they have a team batting average of 381. That's a terrific average in baseball. It's fantastic. But they were averaging 7 runs per game while giving up 1.7. We've talked about that in almost every one of these resolutions, how our teams have been dominating in run or point differential, and they are no different. I'm just glad for Mr. Harrison, who came on board last year as our first year coach. He got to coach, one game down in Florida, and they had to head back due to the pandemic. But he finally got that full season in for all these gentlemen. We wish them all the best of luck. Congratulations to our baseball team. Just say thank you to the board. I have one last note from the athletic department, and that is from the athletic department, for Mrs. Weiss, Ms. Miscavige, and myself. We'd like to thank Mrs. Fern for all her efforts and work that she has done over her career at Springford that have benefited not just the athletic department, but all areas of our students here at Springford. So Mrs. Fern, as much as I'd like to put forth a motion that your resignation not be accepted, we thank you for everything, and you're going to be missed. Have a great retirement.
We echo that. And we also thank you, Mr. McDaniels, for all the accomplishments of all the coaches and the teams that you've led this year. And you brought home so many championships. It's just, you really do exemplify the whole Springford Ram pride. Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Benner, for our FPC end of year update. And Mrs. Sussman, sorry, I didn't see you there.
Okay, thank you so much for having us. I am Trisha Benner, and this is Marissa Sussman. We're the College and Career Advisors in the Future Planning Center, and we're really excited to be here. It's not very popular to say that this was a great year, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think this was a great year. Our seniors worked really, really hard, probably harder than any other class to get where they're going for next fall, and I'm excited to be able to report on that to you guys tonight. So go ahead and just jump into what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about what happened this year in the FPC. We're going to talk about what the result was with our class of 2021. And then we're going to talk about what was new this year and what we're looking forward to next year. So as you can see from our calendar, not much changed, which is hard to believe in a year like this. We kept pretty much all of our programs the same, and we even added new programs and improved on some of the programs that we've offered in the past. We saw a huge jump in attendance for all of our events because they were virtual. So everyone joined from work, from home, from wherever they were. So that was fantastic. All of our events were recorded and provided to families afterwards, which had never happened before. So families were really excited about that because everybody has busy schedules. We also were able to offer 2 of our field trips that we offered last year, but in a virtual format in their classrooms. That's the Pfizer Digital Girls event, which was offered to 9th grade girls, and also the Entrepreneurship Conference this year. Our students loved those. Our SAT boot camp in May was attended more than any other boot camp. And that's because, again, it was virtual, but because it was virtual, the price dropped from $150 per person to $36 per person, which was awesome. Same boot camp, just not as much money because they didn't have to drive out to us and give us physical books. So that was kind of cool. Our career month, we're going to talk about in a little bit. That was definitely a big event for us that we expanded on this year. Our military info Zoom that we had was really well attended. We were able to get all of our military reps to Zoom in for one conference and talk about just in general what military options are at each of the different branches, and families could just get a really good understanding of what all those options look like without being just sold on one branch individually, because sometimes that can be tough. And I'm going to talk about Decision Day next as well. Decision Day, wow, if you were there, you probably couldn't believe your eyes like me. We had over 1,000 people attend. Our theme was Rams are virtually everywhere, a little corny, I know, but our students loved it. You can see we had the big blow up arch. We had cookies donated, well, I shouldn't say donated, discounted, heavily discounted from Corpley's. We did pay for them a little bit, but they were really fun. They were little caps and gowns. Our students came out in their career gear. We had a standing applause for our military bound students. We had a lot of really great group pictures with all of our different college bound students. It was an amazing day. Could have been a little less humid, but other than that, I can't complain at all. So if you weren't there last year, you should definitely try and come out to next year's program. We still offered a lot of testing, only had to cancel one test date in December, and that was because we were short-staffed with proctors. But other than that, we were able to actually offer more testing this year than any year in the past because we were allowed to, due to the pandemic and limited testing in the spring, we increased our fall test dates. You can see some extra test dates on there. Our numbers stayed exactly the same. We did not limit any students from being able to come to our test center. We even were open to students from across the state. So we had some students even driving in from Jersey to come test with us because we were one of the only test centers still open through this whole thing. And I'm really proud of how great our staff was through all of that. And our students were great too, very respectful of everyone in the test center. Our AP exams, you can see we still have a ton of students taking AP exams. We're excited about that. I didn't report on dual enrollment numbers here. We have over 300 students participating in dual enrollment also, if that's of interest. So a lot of students taking advantage of those college credits while still in high school. Okay, and this is where all of our staff's hard work comes in. So I like to give a shout out to all those teachers who wrote an amazing number of letters of recommendation. Yes, that is 154, topping the charts. Our students applied to a record number of schools because they were all test optional. So why not? Let's throw a couple extra applications into those Ivy Leagues and see what happens. We encouraged it if they wanted to. I think our students are great. We have an excellent academic program here. And you'll be able to see on the next slide that did pay off for some of them. So 356 different colleges that our students applied to. We sent 3,434 transcripts. That's a huge number as compared to the past. Unofficial transcripts are being given to students now because of self-reporting. So this means that students are actually having to input all of their own grades into the applications now. So that's what that number is from. And then, yeah, 3,000 letters of recommendation written for our students. So that's amazing. Thank you to all of the staff that are listening. We really appreciate all the support, and our students appreciate it too. So a little bit on the class of 2021. 74% of our class is still headed to a four-year college. And we do actually have, for the first time, a little leapfrog here where we have 13% of students going into either trade apprenticeship programs or going straight into the workforce. And I think that is by design. We have been talking to students more and more about those apprenticeship programs, and we've made some great connections for students and help them make those connections. So I think that that's a good thing to be seeing. We also still have, of course, 12%, a high number of students going into those two-year colleges and trade schools, 1% in the military, that's about the same. And then for the first time ever, or not ever, I guess, since I've been here, we have 2 students doing a true gap year, traveling the world, doing an internship before they go to college, some exciting stuff for those students. Just a general breakdown on majors. STEM is still topping the charts, but again, that's a pretty large field. We have a lot of students interested in health sciences, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. As you can imagine, that's very popular. So let me just take a look at that for a second, and we'll move on. Okay, the text here is tiny, but going the distance has really exploded. I think people are looking to get out of Royersford, which is okay in the college respect. So we have students literally going all over the country. We're really excited about that. Again, we just had students taking more risks with their applications this year because of that test optional factor, and probably because they were at home and maybe had a little bit more time in the fall to do some of this stuff. Highly selective acceptances, you can see some really cool new schools on there that we're excited about. So again, we're really proud of the class of 2021. I think they did a great job. And you'll even see an out-of-state school snuck onto our top 5 list, which again, since I've been here has not happened. So that's kind of neat to see too, and even a private school. Okay, here's the big number that everybody's always interested in, $4 million in scholarships. Again, I think this is due to students expanding their options, applying to more schools. They were having more generous offers, possibly because there was lower enrollment last year. So they're trying to secure their classes this year, but that's a great number to be proud of. We also have a lot of athletic scholarship money listed up there, and those community scholarships were awarded at our senior commencement awards night. Okay, so what was new this year? I'm really excited to talk about this one. Career Month. Before Career Month meant that we would have speakers from our local community come in and talk about their careers, and they would physically come into the building. Because that was not possible this year, we expanded it to let anybody Zoom in from anywhere that they currently were living. So we had some really cool career speakers, and they were excited to talk to our students. Sometimes I feel like I'm twisting people's arms, but this really was a lot of people who were just excited to connect with students and share about their jobs. So from having a nutritionist who worked with the Winter Olympics, to having someone from the Eagles postgame show, to someone who works at Google and Business France, and all of those were represented during Career Month, and many more. We had 37 different speakers. So that was a really cool event. All of those speakers were recorded and are still available on the FPC website. If you're interested, you can go check some of them out. We did it in an interview format this year. So they gave us some really cool information about their jobs and that career journey and what that looks like. So that's what we're really trying to help our students picture, that you don't just wake up one day and know exactly what it is that you want to do. There's a process involved. And thankfully, these people were kind enough to share that their own process with our students and help them picture what that might look like for them and why they may or may not want the careers that they have currently. So very cool program. I think we're going to try and do some kind of hybrid model for next year so that we can keep accessing these people who may not be able to come to our school building. And then to piggyback on that, I'm excited to just touch on this a little bit. I hope I don't get too many questions on it because nothing is 100% set in stone yet, but we are working on a career mentoring and job shadowing program that we are hoping to pilot next year. We're having a meeting with we're calling it the Spring Forward Partners meeting this summer. So the website should be up over the summer where partners or future partners can actually sign up to potentially become a career mentor or take on a job shadow shadower. There's some pretty specific requirements that we need to meet for the state for this, but all of that will be clearly outlined to the stakeholders and also the students. But we're excited to get some students out in the workforce and really see what it's like out there and see what that job looks like in real life and not just on paper. And I think that that's a huge part of career exploration. And this is not going to be limited to one grade level. If you have the ability to get to that location, you are going to be able to do some sort of job shadowing or career mentoring. So all those details are forthcoming, but for right now, just keep an eye out for it. We're excited it's coming. And that is all I have. Does anybody have any questions for us?
Anybody, any questions or comments? Well, I just want to say a very sincere thank you for everything you did for every one of our students. And you really you are a huge part of turning this year into something positive and helping them get to all of these different destinations. So I'm very grateful. I do have a question, like how much of that, I know you said about maybe doing a hybrid thing with the whole career piece next year, but I think that there have been, you have to look for the good, right? So the silver lining, I think there have been a lot of opportunities, maybe in your department more so than in others, that hopefully you'll be able to take a lot of that. I know that the coffee, were they coffee talks? What were?
Oh yeah, we're going to continue those.
Right.
Yeah,
So there
coffee
were-
and conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of different things that you did that was outreach that I hope that you'll be able to take a huge part of that and continue it on. And we'll call it the silver lining, right?
Definitely.
Because it really, I heard from I know a lot of senior parents, heard from a lot of them that they were so happy with the outreach. You kept us connected. You kept all of those parents connected to what was going on. So I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to add, very nice. I just wanted to add that I was very impressed presentation but just with your ability to creatively use the virtual platform to really expand the options, and especially the recordings were, I think, very helpful to parents and families. And I hope we can always continue with that. That was wonderful. But I also just like the fact that you have, since I've been involved with this school district, which is longer than I like to admit, you have increased the options for students, and every year you come up with new ideas and new things that provide more and more options, and it's just very exciting. So
Thank you.
looking forward to the mentorships and the job mentoring. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
This list of accepted and matriculated students, this is amazing. I mean, the number of schools I've never heard of before, schools that are like off the charts, amazing school. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the way you connect our students to places that will benefit them, right? That will help them through their journey as they make their decisions and take their next steps is just really incredible. And being able to kind of find some of these niches and these colleges that may be smaller or in other areas or other regions that, you know, most people have never heard of before from this region. It's just so amazing. And I thank you. It's really cool. It's really cool. Keep it up.
Thank
That's
you.
so awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Always my favorite presentation of the year. Thank
Good.
you so much.
So glad. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, so after those, we're going to move into board and committee reports to our student reps. Allison Aditi, do you have something for us this evening?
Good evening. This is our June student rep report. And here we have a list of recent events that have taken place over the month of May and throughout the beginning of June. We had AP exams at the high school from May 3rd to May 14th. We had the spring play on May 7th and 8th. We had the Senior Impact Awards on May 5th, as well as the Senior Extravaganza on May 15th. We also had the SAT Boot Camp on May 19th and Senior Academic Awards Banquet on the 20th. Throughout the month of May and June, we've had Keystone exams for freshmen and sophomores and the Spring Concert Spectacular on May 22nd. The Senior Commencement Awards and Scholarship Night was on May 27th. The Senior Athletic Banquet was on June 1st. And the Western Montgomery Career and Technology Center Senior Recognition. That was a great thing we had, especially for the seniors, to allow for a good representation of what they would be coming to. And we had the SAT exam on June 5th. The last day for seniors was June 8th. The commencement ceremony was on June 15th. And the last day of school for all students was on June 17th. And something just to look forward to, we have report cards coming out on June 24th.
Since we do not have many upcoming events to review, Aditi and I would like to give an end of year recap. So in-person attendance increased toward the end of the school year, providing momentum for the student body going into a potentially normal 2021-2022 school year. And I think it's safe to say that general morale increased at the end of the year as opposed to the fall and the winter. Outdoor events were able to be held safely, allowing students to reintegrate themselves socially. I know there's a lot of concern that students who have been isolated for a significant period of time might have difficulty being sort of thrust back into normal social situations. And I think that these outdoor events that were held for our students helped to kind of bridge that gap into returning to a more socially integrated community. And then finally, events such as graduation were able to have the same familiar traditional essence as they were held in person, making the end of the year events for the class of 2021 memorable and meaningful. And that is our report. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions for our student reps? Okay, well, I thank you for that report, both of you. And then Mrs. Melton, do you have a legislative report for us this evening?
The legislative committee met last Wednesday. It was a fairly brief meeting focused primarily on Senate Bill 1. Right now, it looks like it hasn't had a lot of traction. It's been slowing down. So we're keeping an eye on it and haven't heard any updates at this point. The committee has been working and conducting outreach to other school boards across the state to try to gain some support opposed to Senate Bill 1. That was the extent of the meeting.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Melton? Okay, Mr. Rizzo, Acting Superintendent, and you will also be covering Nurse Smith for us this evening? is
I
that right?
will.
Okay, thank you.
I'll actually start with that. Good evening. I have some updated numbers for you. This is what Trish Smith would normally provide. I want to share a little bit of additional information. So the week ending 6/11, which is 2 weeks ago, we had 0 in-district cases. And also community, we had 0 cases in Limerick, Royersford, Spring City, and Upper Providence. Montgomery County was 8.7 per 100,000 incident rate and 1.1% PCR positivity. Last week, we did have 2 in-district cases that we did discuss last week. And in Montgomery County, we had 6.9 per 100,000 incident rate and 0.6 PCR positivity rate. We do not have individual municipality numbers. They usually come out on Wednesday. So I'll update the board when they come out. Because Trish Smith was not able to be on the call, I did ask her a few questions that I know the board would be interested in, as I do know that you value her opinion. My first question was, what is your recommendation or are your thoughts on mandating the disclosure of vaccination status? Her response was, vaccination status matters with contact tracing. Currently, an asymptomatic vaccinated close contact does not need to quarantine when exposed. For this reason, it may be in the best interest of students to disclose vaccination dates. However, they don't necessarily support mandating it at this point. They would rather not be required to monitor to make sure they have all that information as well. That creates a bit of a burden in terms of time. How do you feel about optional masking for all students regardless of vaccination status? At this time, they support masks being optional for all students, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated, since the risk across the county is so low and long as they comply with updated guidance from Montgomery County Office of Public Health. How do you feel about mandating masks for all students under 12 until vaccinations become available? And the response is, we've had very minimal transmission of COVID this year, even in the substantial designation. but we have had a mask requirement that was strictly complied with. We do not yet have data regarding transmission between students without masks. That being said, Spring-Ford nurses believe that we should continue to follow the guidance of our county health officials and allow our age 5 to 12 population the choice regarding masking. As the most updated Montgomery County Office of Public Health guidance mentions, businesses and organizations can have their own policies in place that may be more stringent than state and county guidance. If we find the trends of in-school transmission among non-mask wearers, we will encourage administration to enforce more strict mask usage to avoid an outbreak. Lastly, there's the one point that they wanted to bring out was mask considerations on our health suites. We're not going to be using our annexes in the fall. We may still need to enforce mask wearing for students who are symptomatic as they wait to be sent home. We cannot risk compromising the health of our staff and students now that there will be no health annex for isolation. And then OSHA has an update regarding healthcare services provided in a non-hospital setting, which recommends and or enforces the use of masks in the health suite. And while this is not official, they're going to be keeping their eyes out for that update throughout the summer as we plan for next school year. So that would be Trish Smith's update. Health and safety plan updates. I did provide some of information last week, a little additional information this week. On Tuesday, we did post the health and safety plan for public review and to provide feedback via the suggestion box. I've been receiving feedback from parents, about 30 to 35 so far throughout the week, either through the suggestion box directly or to me via email, and some to the board and me. The basic themes that emerged are parents prefer to have masks mandatory for children under 12 years of age, require vaccination status and continue to mask the unvaccinated, continue to follow the CDC guidance, and wait until closer to school starts to make the decisions. Most recent guidance from Montgomery County Office of Public Health is that masks are optional for vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals, both indoors and outdoors. And we have been told that the CDC and PDE will be likely issuing some updated guidance soon. Right now, what I will say is that a little bit of caveat, Montgomery County Office of Public Health guidance is for the summer only. When I initially reported out to the board, I was under the impression it would be for the summer and for the fall. They're not ready to make a recommendation on the fall yet. And the other caveat is that as long as the 14-day average daily cases are below 20, if they start to creep up above 20, they're going to get together and reevaluate that guidance. Lastly, this is one of my standing orders, retirees. We have 4 people I want to announce. Bill Carter, one of our maintenance staff workers for 19 years. Carol Finley, food service worker for Spring-Ford for over 20 years. Susan Kelly, instructional aide at Oaks for 5 years. And Catherine Wright, 22 years of service, most recently teaching second grade at Royersford. Congratulations to those retirees. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Rizzo, did you say 35% or 35 total as far as inquiries?
You mean feedback from parents? 30 to 35 total. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Mr. Rizzo, did you clarify that I just want us to be clear as we move forward. Nurse Smith has stated masks optional is their preference for vaccinated or unvaccinated, indoors or outdoors, all grade levels.
That is correct, as long as the transmission rate is as low as it currently is. As long as it stays within what Montgomery County Office of Public Health is recommending.
And that is the recommendation from Montgomery County Office of Public Health,
Correct.
although it is not completely in line with PDE and CDC.
PDE has not issued anything officially. CDC is still saying masking under 12, but yes, you're correct. It is not in alignment with CDC.
But it is our local government.
Correct.
And what is administration's position?
We support Montgomery County's recommendation at this point to make it optional. And if we start to see a climb as we get closer to the end of the school year, then as the health and safety plan suggests, we can revisit it if we need to.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from any board members?
Is SFEA in alignment with that?
They are, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions. Mr. Fitzgerald, do you have a report for us this evening?
I have no report this evening.
Okay, thank you.
We still love you.
Okay, we'll move in through the rest of the agenda then. We have the minutes A and B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Personnel, A through T. Any questions or comment, or is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Finance, A through G. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Property, A through D. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Programming and curriculum, A through U.
Can we separate T?
Separate T,
Yes. Yes.
A through U, keep T separate. Is there a motion for A through U minus T?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? I'm sorry.
have to separate you as well.
Yeah, I would separate you, because they're really
They're together.
together.
They're together.
Yeah.
One's related to the next.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll separate T and U. So A through S. Is there a motion for A through S?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on A through S? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those carry. Now, we'll take T. Is there a motion for T? Can we take T and U together?
I would recommend they be taken, they really are in conjunction with each other.
Okay. So is there a motion for T and U?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a comment regarding it. I've received, like many of us too, many concerns, and I know the board in general has many concerns about what next year will bring and the masking mandates, and everybody is interested in the safety and well-being of our students. And the guidance that we're getting from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Montgomery County Department of Health, PDE really is vague. It leaves it in the hands frequently of the school board with this. I am concerned. I'm very happy with, I think, with the progress we made this year. I think as a board and as a community, I think Montgomery County as a whole, we are where we are right now because of so many of the precautions that we've taken. And as Trish Smith, who has provided us with such great information and guidance, and even said, we don't have that data yet on what it looks like for students in our building who are not wearing masks. And I am particularly concerned about our students that don't have the option, the ability to be vaccinated. And I'm thinking of as a parent too, of my child getting ready and excited to go to school, who's 12 or under and unable to be vaccinated, about them being able to, my concern, I'm planning for next year what I'm going to do. And we don't start the first day of school planning as parents, we've been planning for a while. And the way that our health and safety plan is written right now leaves a lot of options as to what it will look like, a lot of flexibility. I feel strongly that when we're talking about the health and safety of our students, that our unvaccinated children are 12 and under, which is 6th grade and under, K through 6, that we plan to start the school year with a mask mandate that for students and staff that align with the recommendations of people who are unvaccinated should be masked or can be masked, leaning towards the more conservative. We can revisit this if we find that other districts or the numbers improve. Summer is going to be interesting to see how the numbers change. I want masks off students as much as anybody, but I don't see that I would be comfortable, or I could understand someone not being comfortable sending their child that doesn't have the opportunity to be vaccinated into the classroom. I mean, Monday, the last week of school, we had cases in 2 of our elementary buildings. So I would like to make a motion to amend the health and safety plan that mask wearing be mandatory for students and staff in the K-6 buildings until either a vaccine is available and our students have the opportunity to get vaccinated, or until the Department of Health recommendations change that they say that mask wearing, unvaccinated people mask wearing at school is safe.
Are there 5 board members that want to continue down this road to amend the health and safety plan?
Can't do that. You have to see if there's a second. You gotta take comment. You can't just say that.
So you're right. So like last week, there's a motion. Now there needs to be a
I'm
second.
not
on the
amending.
amendment.
Okay.
There needs to be a second on the amendment.
So a motion, is there a second?
Sorry, second.
Questions or comments?
And then like last week, we will then open up for comment on the amendment, which is the narrow issue of mask wearing for K-6 based on guidance from various authorities to make that a requirement as part of the health and safety plan. That's my understanding of it.
And the availability of a vaccination for our children 12 and under.
Right, and we heard from a number of parents about this week, and I don't negate what you're saying, Dr. Wright. My concern is that, as I said to Mr. Rizzo, when you look at everything that's out there, right away, we can see that Montgomery County Office of Public Health and the CDC and PD, they're not in line. They're not in alignment right now. And this health and safety plan, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rizzo, can be adjusted at any time. Is that right?
That is correct. It needs to be approved by June 30th or submitted by July 30th. But it can be adjusted and amended at any time to meet the needs. And in the guidance that we've received both from MCIU and from NCOPH, as well as our own solicitor, is to write it in such a way that it's flexible so that we can change and not have to, we can change with the guidance as the guidance changes.
And then also to avoid that crunch, and I'm very sorry that happened, that was 24 hours notice, as it was many times throughout the last year. We're meeting again August 16th, which is 2 weeks prior to the start of school. And with that, if there has to be a change, there's ample opportunity for that to happen. But it's also August 16th is at a time when we'll have more feedback from all of these organizations and hope that they'll all be together and on the same page about the direction that we go. But even as of right now, our medical staff, our own in-house medical staff is saying to have it optional, because we're not saying it's banned, we're saying it's optional. And that to do that, and if there should be a need to change, then we change, because they don't have the data. So if we see that there's a need to change, then we change. And because of the flexibility that the administration has put in the HSP, I believe that that's there for us to do that. So anyway, that's my comment on the motion.
This is a
I think we've
plan. I
done
mean,
it.
we have a plan. It's all it is a plan. And there, somewhere along the line, people get the idea that a plan is something that's carved in concrete, and it obviously is not. We're not a board that's, all our decisions are irreversible. So we go in with a plan that it's optional based on things, how they are now. Not, and are we going to ever get the CDC or this national, the state and the local health departments ever going to agree? Or they've kicked us, they've punted to us for the last, year and a half. You take the decision, you take it on you, you take all the, the backlash from the community based on your non-health experience. All these boards that are paid to make these decisions aren't making these decisions for us. Or one says this and one says that. This is a plan to go in based on our numbers as they are now. If we get to August and we see the numbers are rising, certainly we're not going to just go forward saying nobody wear a mask. So I don't understand why we can't, with the numbers being basically nothing right now, we can't have a plan to make it optional. If your children have it, put a mask on your kids if that's going to help. I don't see why we can't go forward with this and revisit if it's necessary in August, in September, twice a month if we need to, whenever it arises, if it needs to be readdress it.
I think I'm struggling and I'm really on the fence with this. And what I struggle the most with is this optional, right? Because when we're talking about a kindergartner or a first grader, how are they able to effectively make a decision, right? I don't feel like wearing it. Well, okay, but your parents wanted, the parents really are in the position to make that decision, and yet we're really leaving it on the child to follow through with that. And I think that that's a little bit difficult. I'm having a hard time digesting that because it is our youngest children who may not be at a point to be able to make an informed decision. And yet that's who, is potentially at a greater risk, or who, at least as of today, does not have the opportunity for a vaccine. So I'm a little bit struggling with that piece of it. I know I wouldn't be comfortable sending my first grader and thinking that she was really going to keep her mask on all day, because it wouldn't have happened. So I think as a parent, that's a real struggle, and without some kind of support or process, or how do we know, right? And this says, if we're in a higher substantial, masks will be encouraged for those who are unvaccinated. Well, we just said that we're not going to require reporting of who's vaccinated and who's not. So who are we going to encourage? I just feel like there's a little bit of inconsistency in the way it's presented a little bit. And yet, I certainly would love to remove masks, and everybody wants to be mask free. I mean, I don't think anybody, but on the other hand, I think we have to make sure that our ducks are in a row before we move forward.
I'm also concerned about the timing. If we're talking about not finalizing our plan, depending on what happens between now and then in August, and school starts again in August, we also need to give families time to instruct and explain to their children whichever way it's going to go. And if we're going to go back to mask because we have to, because of the Delta variant or even more COVID cases, they need time for that. I've heard a lot about, it was very difficult for the children with this last decision, that overnight, and they didn't understand, where you've made me do this all year long. And now all of us, and then I had to follow rules. And now all of a sudden I don't have to, and I can do whatever I want. So it's going to take a little bit more time for the families to work this out with their younger children. I think, of course, junior high, high school can be a little bit easier, but the young children, most of the comments that I have gotten from parents, and I'm sure we've all gotten them, have concerned elementary young children. So I don't know if we're going to have enough time. If we're going to wait till August, and school starts in August, it takes us sometimes weeks to come to a final plan and a decision. So I'm not really comfortable with that. And I really appreciate Christine's comments, and I agree. And I also agree with Maggie's concerns.
All right, any other comments from board members?
So there's a lot of good comments, and what we've dealt with this whole past year was that nobody was ever in alignment with anything. So from a school district standpoint, we had to try to balance the best information that we had. My understanding is the county at this point is remove masks for the summer. Also my understanding that the state is dropping all mask requirements or mandates June 28th across the board, correct? So that's the information. PDE, as usual, I'm not even sure what PDE's, where they're at. So that's kind of where what we're faced with. And CDC has their guidance as far as where they're at nationally as well with masks. So once again, no one is in alignment with anybody, right? Am I reading, understanding that correctly? So then we're forced to make a decision. And for all the emails that we got this week, whereas we would probably receive the same or double the amount of emails previously about making masks optional. So my problem is that as soon as we make one decision, there's a whole group of parents that come out and they have their position, and then they don't like the decision that was made. You know, we're hearing from our nursing staff, we're hearing from everyone, this is the way it's going. But I'm always big on, you know, surveying the parents. You know, what, you know, parents K through 12 years old, not 12th grade.
K through 6, yeah.
Where are they at? Well, what's their thought process? How many parents, because we're gonna have, if we don't understand, and you know, I brought this up before, if we don't actually understand all of the parents' positioning or majority of the parents' positioning within that age group as we go into next year, then we have to deal with a whole slew of other problems as far as, you know, students are coming to school, options that may or may not be available anymore, enrollment into cyber school, you know, enrollment in cyber schools outside of Springport or whatever. I mean, it just becomes, and we don't know what we don't know as far as where the parents are concerned. I also agree with Wendy that most likely over the next month and a half, everything is going to continue to evolve. I think Pennsylvania, the reports are at that they're at like 69 or 70% of people have been vaccinated or will be vaccinated by the end of June or something like that. So the numbers constantly are changing, positions are constantly changing. But the one thing that we need to understand, I feel that we need to totally understand, is where the parents are at. Because I know that there's this rumor that I control this board and you all do what I tell you to do, which I think is hysterical. But I also think that the other rumor is that we're swayed by one group of what they're deemed bullies in the community. And that's, I don't think this board made any decisions based on any set of a group of parents. But what I would like to see is if I think we need to survey the parents and understand what August is start of school is going to look like next year. Because the other concern that I do have with this plan that I brought up before was that if a student goes out and they have to quarantine for 2 weeks, I'm not comfortable with them being in a position, it was a whole other topic, with being in a position of being asynchronous learning, which I was going to bring up, but has nothing to do with this motion. So I'll bring that up later.
I think a survey is also a good idea. I believe, and I think it's proven by all the peer-reviewed science, and that masks work. They work for an indoor virus that's transmitted by aerosol particles, period. We've seen them work all year. But that being said, just masking everybody based upon only that, I mean, if the majority of the adults in the state and in the country are vaccinated and are high risk, you know, adults are vaccinated, that matters. If transmission rates are low and COVID numbers are very low, that matters. If we can get more kids in the building safely with mask optional, that matters. So all of these other things play a role. Masks aren't the only thing. We have to look at the whole thing. And if the nurses feel comfortable and the administration support this health and safety plan at this point, that matters. Also, if the nurses feel they can contact trace and do what they need to do to keep our students safe, even the young ones, that matters. So I think that this is something that we can approve and then, you know, tweak if we need to.
But I do think that we need to get a clear picture of what the parents want. I think that that would be helpful because we tend to just hear from a small minority one way or the other. And I think that it would be nice to hear from the parents who haven't spoken up also.
I'm not opposed to doing a parent survey at all. I think bringing that in is fine. But do any of you think that now is the appropriate time to do that? Because I feel like there's still time for things to change over the summer. We're doing a parent survey now would provide information that would be obsolete or unimportant, and that to do it maybe later in the summer would be a better idea before our board meeting in August, which, and Diane, your mic's on, which would actually be 2 weeks, not 24 hours before our next, or before the start of school. What time frame are you thinking for the parent survey?
I wasn't, I was just putting it out there. I was commenting on the motion.
But we could do that in earlier August so that the results are ready for with administration.
Can we stay focused on the discussion on the amendment?
Sure.
I mean,
Okay.
it's
So
certainly
we've
this is a
had,
valid topic, but you might want to just.
Colleen, I agree, and I agree with Christine, but one thing is we do know by the current literature that the Delta variant is affecting children much more than adults. We don't know when the vaccine for under 12 is going to be available.
correct. And I don't think that we should do any more hypothesizing like we did last year on what we don't know. I would rather wait
right.
to have more guidance. But as Mr. Fitzgerald said, and not to cut you off, but I do want to stay on that, and then we'll revisit some of these other comments. Are there any other comments specifically related to Dr. Wright's amendment?
And I would like to kind of respond to some of the comments that were made. And we have, as a district, have approached with a step-by-step method of really with everything that we have done. We've and I think by having the mask requirement for the K through 6 is another way in which we can do that. It's one more layer that we're pulling away by allowing the masks, to be mask-free for the upper grades. It's a transitional. It's more conservative way of changing. As far as the numbers are nothing, which is what Wendy had said regarding right now, the number of cases. I would attribute that, and the data shows, I think would agree with that, science is attributed to mask wearing. And that's one of the concerns, is when the mask wearing goes away, that those numbers will no longer be nothing. And what we do know won't change, when people were talking about the changes, and Mr. DeBello had said that what we won't change is right now is that we will not have a large body of students 12 and under vaccinated when school starts. I mean, if a vaccination does come into play, there will not be enough time for our students. So we don't know what other things will be happening, but we do know that the majority or all of our 12 and under will not be vaccinated when school starts. And I agree also, we have differing parents with different points of views. I agree with the idea of gathering more information from a survey, but in the meantime, I would be less hesitant to eliminate this, and let's move forward in a more conservative manner so parents can see what happens. And as the summer progresses and we get more information, then maybe revisiting that, based on the vaccination numbers. So
we're going to revisit it in August either way, whether we say
we are
now.
always revisiting.
Yeah, so if we
constantly.
say right now that they're going to be, masks are optional, and we're going to revisit it in August, we can always say then, no, we're going to need it because of the situation has changed. But we can also say right now, no, masks are mandatory. And then in August, we say, well, things are really good. Now they're optional. So what difference does it make?
Because we approach things thoughtfully, carefully,
I
and
think it's thoughtfully,
conservatively.
carefully either way. Whether it's conservative, if that's your opinion, it's conservative. I think it's based on the way things are going now.
But Wendy, that allows us not to flip-flop as many times.
I disagree. We may flip-flop one way, whether we're flipping from optional to required or required to optional. It's a flip-flop. I don't understand why it makes a difference that if we're mandating it now and then we relax it versus we relax it and we mandate it then. What's the difference?
So much is
Alrighty.
going to happen between now and the time we reopen. I mean, the time next school year begins. There's going to be a lot that's going to happen, whether it's a new variant, whether there's a vaccine for our 2 to 12-year-olds, whatever that's going to be. There's going to be a lot of movement that's going to happen. Think about the last year. Think about a 2 to 3 month period, how rapidly things changed and how much things moved. They're going to move. They're going to change. And we need to be nimble. And we need to be able to change with them. Again, I'm kind of in this middle point. I certainly rely very heavily on our nursing team here at Springford. I respect them immensely, and I hear what they're saying, and they certainly have been very conservative as it relates to masking and returning to school and in-person learning. So certainly the county has a greater knowledge of our direct risks within our communities. And then, I look at, as a parent, the struggles that you have with a kindergartner. So I kind of go both ways and I see both sides of it. And I think we all just have to go with what's in our gut and do the best we can.
So could I make a recommendation?
Can I say something very quickly first? And Mr. Fitzgerald, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. The way this is set up for approval, it's for summer and for fall.
That's what I was gonna.
Oh, okay.
I was just gonna say, let me see if I can just solve this quickly, because I don't want to be here till 10 o'clock tonight. Could we make a slight update to the plan that says well, right now we'll stay in alignment with Montgomery County where masks are optional for summer programs and have a plan a meeting for beginning part of August, because nothing's set in stone as far as when the meeting is in August. Plan a meeting for August. At that point, we have all the information we need to revise or change or make whatever modifications we need, because no matter what, we need to have this plan in place and submit it, right? So that's not to say that we can't put in the plan that we're going to stay optional for now in alignment with what Montgomery County and the state's saying through the summer, have a meeting in August, whatever, and then just revisit it, because we're just going to go round and round here.
And Tom, as much as I appreciate that and everyone's comments, I mean, for once, we've got our nursing staff, administration, and teachers making a recommendation here, and we're going to go up here and I don't understand it. I mean, let's have a vote. Let's have public comment. Let's have a vote.
I agree, Mr. Schaefer. I'm not adding any meetings unless you people force me to this summer, because we sat here last year. We had a lot to figure out. This plan, the way it is flexible enough to allow for us to meet on August 16th after a parent survey in the beginning of August, find out from all of the parents, give all of the parents from K through 6 an option to tell us what they want, not just the louder people, not just the emailing people, all parents 6 through 12 or K through 6 up to 12 years of age. Let them tell us what they want. We meet on the 16th. If we need to change the plan, we can do it on the 16th based on the exact guidance at that time from all of the entities that flood us with information and recommendations and guidance and mandates. We can make our decision then. If it needs to change, the plan allows for changes to take place, and we move from there. But as of right now, we have administration and we have nursing staff, the medical staff that we have relied on. I'm not willing to go against them. So we'll do this. If there are no more questions or comments from the board, we'll take public comment or on what amendment are we, is this?
Don't have to answer.
One question, what's the first day of school?
August 30th for students. August 25th for teachers.
In answer to Mr. DeBello, I am in agreement that the summer program is not what I'm talking about. The summer school is not mandated that students attend in the same way. So the fact that we have students that they have the option whether to attend in the same way. So mask mandating in the summer program is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when we come in amending the plan for the fall, so that when students come back into our buildings, that we start with this amending it. So now we start with a more conservative, slower approach. When we gather more data and we look at it again in August, then perhaps it does change, but let's approach it more conservatively is what I'm looking at. So, and I don't think that any of our nursing staff, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that any of them would approve of mask mandates for K through 6.
Sorry, are we speaking on behalf of groups of employees now?
No, but I do believe, Mr. Rizzo, they are not saying K through 6 should be masked.
No, I talked with association leadership and this plan was available to everybody.
Okay, so are there any other questions or comments from, Mr. Fitzgerald, what motion do we have? Can you give us some clarity?
Yes, this is an amendment to the health and safety plan. And this is an amendment specific to students K through 6, that they would be required to wear a mask unless or until they are able to be vaccinated, or there's specific direction that they don't have to wear a mask, essentially from a third party. That would be my understanding of the amendment. There's no other amendments to the plan presented in as part of that.
For fall only or for summer and fall? Okay.
Yeah, and when I
For the fall, for the school year, the following school year, not for the summer.
So not for the summer.
I would view everything as if you're looking to the entire school year right now, because remember, what you're submitting to the state, and we mentioned this last week, and I think it's worth repeating one more time. Obviously, timing isn't good here. This is not great because we should be getting more information over the next several weeks, and hope, as we get closer to the fall. This is in part due to PD telling us we need to develop plans, but this is in part due to federal funding dollars. So this template that was put together was to comply with the ESSER dollars that would be coming our way under ESSER 3. So there's that component of it as well. Again, substantively, you will be able to revisit this at any time you want, whether it be to modify it, to make it more restrictive, or to make it frankly looser. That's going to be the prerogative of the board. And as this board has indicated over the last 15 months, you often look at it and then determine at the time based on real evidence what to do. So that substantively, I don't think this changes much.
All right, thank you. So with that, is there any public comment in the room? Is there any public comment on the Zoom? Go ahead, Rich.
Michael Lebedinsky, you may now make public comment. Please state your full name and address and your public comment to be heard.
Michael Lebedinsky, 2005 Willowwood Drive, Royersford, PA. I've heard a couple times that we don't have data or we don't know the differentiation between masked and unmasked. That's simply untrue. And if someone has the data, I'd like to see it. That masking is responsible for low transmission rates among our young people is a debunked fallacy. It's irrefutable and undisputed biological fact that children have fewer ACE2 receptors in their lung cells. This is the true scientific reason they are rarely infected, not social distancing and not masks. This is yet another reminder that correlation does not equal causation. There's never been a single study that has linked causation from masks and social distancing to infections. If masks and social distancing were effective, we would expect to see infection differentiation between masked and unmasked. Yet every single randomized controlled trial which studied this found no statistically significant differentiation. The most notable one being the Danish study of over 56,000 people. In addition, we've had 8.7 million students in Texas, Florida, Iowa, South Dakota, masked and unmasked in the classroom. And every one of those states, go look at their websites, you'll see there's no differentiation between masked and unmasked. So please stop saying that we don't have the data. We do have the data, you just don't want to look at it. According to Dr. Fauci, in his recently revealed personal emails, masks are not effective. Quote, I do not recommend that you wear a mask, particularly since you're going to a very low risk area. Regarding asymptomatic spread, Dr. Fauci also said, quote, even if there is some asymptomatic transmission, in all the history of respiratory-borne viruses of any type, asymptomatic transmission has never been the driver of outbreaks. The driver of outbreaks has always been a symptomatic person, unquote. As the most experienced and highest ranking infectious disease expert in our country, we should listen to his guidance. More locally, listen to what our local health experts have said publicly. Richard Lorraine, medical director of the Montgomery County Office of Public Health, in his June 3rd board meeting comments stated that 99% of county residents over the age of 65 are fully vaccinated, 99%. In the same presentation, Dr. Lorraine stated that the chance of a vaccinated Montgomery County resident becoming infected with COVID is less than the chances of winning the lottery and being struck by lightning on the same day. Pretty small chances. We know scientifically and statistically that young people rarely become infected, and we know why that is. I just don't understand what people are so fearful of. The data is very clear. Thank you.
Christine, you may now make public comment. Please unmute yourself, state your full first name and last name and your address.
Christy Drimowski, 310 4th Avenue, Montclair. I just wanted to say, as a parent, I just really appreciate what Dr. Wright is proposing and saying, and that just in talking with other parents in preparation for this meeting and looking over the plan, it's just from a standpoint of if your child may have been out of school in virtual learning or in cyber learning, I think it just feels more conservative, a little bit more, I don't know, safe, I guess is the word, just to go into the school year with students that aren't eligible to be vaccinated, that don't really have much choice or options at this point, to kind of stay in that safer side until they are eligible for a vaccine. And also just from a standpoint of thinking of elementary age kids, similar to what Ms. Melton said, you know, if there's not a standard protocol for all students at this age, I would hate for staff and teachers to have to become the mask police and try to figure out, okay, it's optional and which kids their parents want to wear masks and don't. So just having kind of a standard blanket across, you know, the school for this age group with the knowledge that we have now and CDC's recommendations that unvaccinated people stay masked indoors, I think is something that makes me as a parent feel very comfortable and secure going into next school year and excited to send my child back to in-person learning in the fall. And I think other parents feel the same. So I do also am grateful for the idea and hopefully the opportunity to provide feedback in a parent survey that's specific to elementary parents and families, because as with everything else with this pandemic, it's just so nuanced and there's so many specific things for specific people and age groups and all of that. So you know, I think at this point in the game where we're at with this is you got to look at it kind of not like an on-off switch, but sort of a dimmer switch where it's just, you know, thinking of, okay, here's what we know for the 12 and up, and here's what we have to deal with for kids that are 12 and under. So thank you.
Allison O'Brien, you may now make public comment. Please state your full name and address and your public comment to be heard.
Allison O'Brien, 505 Andover Lane, Collegeville, 19426. I just wanted to say a thank you to Dr. Wright. I wholeheartedly and completely agree with what she's proposing in changing with the masks for K through 6. I have a daughter that will be going in the 1st grade, and I would feel 100% more comfortable sending her there, knowing that she will be masked until she can get a vaccination. And I agree with the other parents that stated it's going to be too hard to figure out what kid is supposed to be wearing a mask, what kid isn't supposed to be wearing a mask, so on and so forth. So I think that things need to not be so black and white. And we need to have a little bit more of wiggle room for the kids that can't be vaccinated and do need to be safe. And other people can say what they want about currently right now. Yes, the rates of COVID are low, but we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. We don't know what's going to happen with this variant that is affecting kids more. So I just want to say thank you to Dr. Wright for speaking up for what is right. Thank you.
Kim Anderson, you may now make public comment. Please unmute yourself, state your full name and address and your public comment to be heard.
Hi, it's Kim Anderson, 123 Patriot Drive. If you just give me
30 seconds, I'd like to start on a positive note and just express my gratitude for a very positive school board meeting tonight, at least in the beginning. I missed the name of the woman who gave the presentation regarding our graduates and their future plans. I'm sorry, but you did a wonderful job tonight, and obviously an amazing job all year keeping the students and parents engaged with all their options and with a large collection of speakers. Very well done. Without desiring to go negative, I am disappointed to hear, and I'm not 100% positive about this, but I did hear that there was a petition being posted on some of the unofficial class pages on Facebook to petition to mask our students for the next school year. I did not see it on my students' class page, but I heard that it was posted and then removed. I would hope that we are all looking forward to returning our children to normal next year. A positivity rate of less than 5% is indicative of suppression. We have been averaging 1% or below, so it is difficult to understand these parents who in mid-late June are pushing now to mask our kids again next year, given the numbers that we are currently seeing. I am vaccinated, but I am not comfortable at this point having my 9 and 12-year-old boys vaccinated, given how low the risk COVID-19 poses on their age group. There are too many unknowns still regarding vaccines. They're very new on young children. There's been some negative things that we've seen on the younger age group. Many parents are weighing all of this information, assessing risk, etc. For me personally, at this time, COVID-19 does not pose a frightening risk for my children in the school setting or anywhere else. It's personal, but that's how I feel. These new vaccines give me pause for their age group. With more time passed, I may change my mind regarding getting them vaccinated when more data regarding possible side effects has been compiled. With all that said, we should not be prolonging a pandemic that no longer exists here. The storm has passed. It is time to crawl out of the COVID hole we've been living in. I guess I thought this would be the one thing that we would all finally agree on, but it doesn't appear to be so. I'm shocked to hear some still talking about masking next year. I have one question for you. When does this end for you? What more do you need? I just don't know what else we need to see to eliminate this and to stop talking months in advance about putting masks back on our children. That's it. Thank you.
At this time, there were no other hands raised.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion that Dr. Wright has proposed and Mr. Fitzgerald has clarified, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I oppose.
I opposed. Okay, so we're gonna have to take a roll call.
Mr. Schaefer,
I oppose.
Dr. Wright? Yes. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. DeBello,
No.
Mrs. Zadowski,
No.
Mrs. Melton,
Yes.
Mrs. Fazzini,
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Earl,
No.
five yeses.
Okay, the motion passes. That's for T and U.
No.
That's
you
for,
just- you-
that's
you-
for
The amendment
the
to,
amendment.
that's the amendment to T. So T now will be reflective of the underlying motion plus the amendment, which addresses masking K through 6. So now you actually have to vote on T and U. But it's a, but you have the motion in second. Now it's and just for the record, the declaring an emergency was specific directives from PDE in order for all hours to count next year for our state subsidy.
Got it. Is there a motion then for,
The motion, you can now vote. You can just vote.
so just a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries for T and U. Conferences and workshops, A. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Other business, A and B and D and E.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
No.
For all of them? Okay, okay. Well, that's one, so the rest of them pass, so pass the motion. C is a first read of 13 policies. So we don't need to vote on that. Is there any board comment this evening beyond what we've discussed?
Yeah, actually, I wasn't going to support the plan at all this evening because I'm still not comfortable with the fact that it doesn't state, and maybe it doesn't need to be stated, but if students have to be quarantined for 2 weeks, I'm not comfortable with putting them or having them in an asynchronous learning environment. And I still believe we need to survey the parents as far as what the expectation is going into the start of the school year as well.
So let's go back to that discussion then that we were having when we were getting sidetracked with the survey. Is there board direction for a survey for the beginning of August to take place with the results to be provided to us in a board memo prior to the August 16th meeting, and then a discussion on the 16th? Is there board direction to do that?
Yes,
I'm seeing
think
heads.
so.
Yes.
Okay,
And I would even go so far as to say that would be an action item for the 16th, because that we do need to make sure that our community, our families have enough time to adjust to any decisions or any changes that might be made.
Yes, so they have a plan of action and can decide what they want to do going forward.
with 2 weeks prior to the start of school.
Right.
Any other board comment this evening? Okay, public
We
to be
made
heard.
it. We made it through the school year. Congratulations.
I'm really not.
Congratulations to the board, administration, staff, students, families. This was a crazy, crazy 15 months, but certainly crazy year, and ended on a lot of high notes, and couldn't be prouder of all of the folks that we work with and for, and differing opinions are good, and I've learned a lot from everybody through this process. So thank you and congratulations.
Thanks. I can't say anymore. Thanks. I'm tired. Okay. Is there any public to be heard at this point?
Good evening, Anthony Frigo, 1003 Main Street, Winfield, Pennsylvania. I'm a month or so ago, I came before this board and asked them to evaluate whether or not a BLM sticker belongs in the school. I have not really received an answer to that. There was some correspondence between myself and Mr. Rizzo, but it has not been resolved. And I was first wondering exactly where we are with this. I mean, if it's a matter of money, I have $3. I'll give you a scraper.
No. Mr. Rizzo, do you want to take that? Because I know you've done some work to address that. So maybe you could clarify that.
Sure, happy to.
Can we go through and get public comment completed before we Q&A, if possible, just, and then that can be addressed at the end.
Okay, all right. I'm going to have Mr. Rizzo make a statement about what's been happening with that. Is there any further comment that you would like to make this evening during this section?
Well, I haven't been idle. I have it in my hand, the Black Lives Matter, what we believe statement, all right? And what they believe apparently is that they are forever changed. We returned home to begin building an infrastructure for the Black Lives Matter global network, which even in its infancy has become a political home for many. My comment to you was that the Black Lives Matter is a political organization. It's not a protest. It's a political organization, all right? And it has historical parallels, not the least of which would be Nazi Germany, which aligned itself with the fascist in Italy. Black Lives Matter is aligned with fascism, Antifa. Okay. Also, they say in here that they are comrades, allies, and family culture. That's Marxism. Okay. I am not like Tree's colors. I'm not a trained Marxist. I'm trained in Marxism. I've studied it. I have 2 advanced degrees. All right. This is not something to be taken lightly. All right. They also want to dismantle cisgender privilege. 2 advanced degrees, and I had to look that one up. Cisgender means, wait a minute. A cisgender person is a person whose gender identity matches their sex assigned at birth. Okay? And they also want to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family, which is actually, if you pull out the Communist Manifesto,
Okay,
Marxism.
we're at 3 minutes.
Pardon?
We're at 3 minutes. We're done. Your public comment.
One more time.
Your 3 minutes is done.
Oh, my 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll wait on that until we'll take the rest of the public comment, as Mr. Fitzgerald had said. So go ahead, thank you.
Lindsay Olanoski, 26 Pin Oak Drive, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I would like to speak about the decision that was made last week. At issue is not my personal beliefs regarding masks, but how the decision was made specifically. I know so many parents and students were incredibly excited to finish off the last couple days to not in a mask. That's like the dream we've been working towards, and I respect that and I honor that. But I also know so many parents and students who are angry and confused. And I will say personally, it's majority in the elementary school level. In your efforts to remove mandatory masks, you created a chaotic scene. Parents had minimal time, if any, to speak to their children regarding their own homes, boundaries, and rules. You also took away children's time to ask their parents and vent their concerns on what they should do. Aside from that, teachers and staff had zero time to implement new classroom management regarding masks on top of what they've already done in an effort to respect the wishes of their parents. I'm sure you heard from parents who are ecstatic that masks were finally gone. But I also am sure you heard from parents because their children were taunted because they chose to wear a mask, or from parents whose children were judged for removing it. And maybe you've now also heard about bullying. There is a child who had another child try to physically remove their mask because they felt it was their right. It seems that in this great push to provide parents with a choice, which is a favorite word this year, the board did not think through how this decision would be implemented in the buildings. This lack of forethought makes the decision seem more a testament to personal wants and not one with the well-being of all students in mind. Heeding the advice of our superintendent, a person whose handling of the pandemic was heralded as one of the reasons to hire him, would have been a prudent decision. Moving forward, I task that if you're going to vote on actions that take immediate effect and are contrary to the administration's guidance, you provide them with the time to thoughtfully take action and recognize that how you implement for your students in high school may differ from how you implement at the elementary level. This was a prime example of not giving consideration to the different needs of different age groups. We had 3 days to go and kids were on a high. And this was really rough at the elementary level. And I really think it's prudent that you understand that. All of that aside, I am so thankful for the incredible work done by the administration and the buildings and the staff down custodians to teachers. It was phenomenal. And my children have been in person. And it is because of the work of the building individuals that my children are there. And I just really want to say thank you to them. Thanks.
We have no public comment on the Zoom, I am told. So with that, Mr. Rizzo, would you like to just make a general comment in reference to the one piece that we have here, which did not come up earlier? So maybe just a general comment on where we are with EDI and addressing that.
Sure, that's fair. And Mr. Frigo, I do appreciate your patience with me. I will give you a call tomorrow as well to talk further, but let me just simply say at this point, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee did meet 3 times to talk about this issue. We did survey the EDI committee because not everybody spoke at all meetings. We did survey our building level administration, our district administration to collect some information. I did share that in the board memo 2 memos ago. And I did go so far as to reach out to all of our county superintendents to see what they're doing. And it's pretty wide open. Some are allowing the sticker, some are not allowing the sticker, some have it written into their equity, diversity and inclusion policies. So they're kind of all over the map. The question really comes down to whether it's a political group, as Mr. Frigo mentioned, or whether it is a human rights movement. And that's really where the discussion is. So we are continuing to work through that. I am meeting with Carlos Wiley, our consultant, to talk a little bit further about this. In general, our EDI committee wants to keep the sticker, and they would like to educate our board and our committee, and or educate our board and our public on what the human rights movement means. Our administrators generally feel like they could go either way, that the work could be done either way. So there's still some answers to be had.
Okay, and with that, thank you, Mr. Rizzo, for the clarification. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.